Brothers and sisters, neighbors and fellow citizens, those who rise before dawn to till the fields, and those who keep watch over our hospitals through the long nights. Today I speak of a choice that is more than machinery and metal. It is a statement about who we are and how we will meet the storms of the future. When a nation decides what it will put in its skies, it is deciding what it will trust with its nights, its borders, and the fragile peace of its children. The decision before us to take up a capable, accessible fighter platform that comes with partnership, training, and transfer of knowledge is a choice in favor of agency. It is a deliberate step away from dependency toward a horizon where we build, maintain, and improve our own defenses with our own hands. This is not a simplistic tale of East pitted against West, or of loyalties traded like goods at market. It is, instead, a thoughtful reorientation of policy toward what matters most: practical capability, sustainable budgets, local expertise, and partnerships that respect our sovereignty. For too long, procurement has been framed as a contest of prestige, the flashiest banner on the tarmac, the most dazzling tour by foreign dignitaries. Yet prestige does not scramble a runway at midnight when an emergency requires response. Prestige does not guarantee spare parts when diplomatic winds shift. What protects lives is readiness, maintenance, and the ability to fix problems without waiting on the courtesy of distant capitals. We have chosen a path that makes our airspace our own responsibility, not someone else's goodwill. Think for a moment of the pilots and technicians who will rise at first light. They will not inherit an aircraft they cannot touch with confidence. The platform we have chosen arrives with a promise: training programs for pilots, comprehensive maintenance courses, and opportunities for local assembly and overhaul. These are not afterthoughts. They are central commitments that turn a one-time purchase into a generational asset. Every hour a pilot logs in a well-supported jet becomes a lesson for a young engineer in a workshop who will learn to keep it flying. That continuity, from cockpit to clinic, from hangar to classroom, is the essence of durable security. Let us speak plainly about money, because prudence is not a modest virtue in defense planning, but a moral one. The acquisition we embarked on respects not only our strategic needs, but the practical arithmetic of a national budget. It offers a favorable balance between performance and life cycle costs. Western alternatives often promise dazzling capability while saddling our treasury with long-term sustainment that strains health, education, and roads. We refused that false choice between security and development. Instead, we selected a platform that allows us to protect the sky while still investing in schools, clinics, and the basic infrastructure that makes defense meaningful. A grounded Air Force is worse than no Air Force at all. The best deterrent is one that flies regularly, is maintained locally, and evolves with our needs. This is a decision rooted in knowledge transfer. Too often in the past, equipment arrived as sealed boxes with manuals written in foreign idioms and restrictions on who may touch the tools. We demanded and secured transfer of know-how, manuals opened, certification programs shared, and pathways to local assembly paved. This is not charity, it is a sound strategic bargain. A nation that can maintain its fleet domestically gains negotiating leverage, reduces downtime, and grows an industry that feeds its economy. Local mechanics become master technicians, and the knowledge economy grows around them. Firms producing components, software teams working on avionics updates, universities teaching the next generation of aerospace engineers. The multiplier effect is enormous. What begins as a defense choice becomes an industrial policy. Consider the diplomatic implications. This procurement signals that partnerships can be pragmatic and respectful. Our partner nation offers experience gained under austere conditions, maintenance cultures forged on necessity, and an openness to co-development that is rare. This is the kind of collaboration that produces mutual benefit rather than conditionality. It means faster parts, cooperative training exchanges, and a readiness to tailor systems to our operational environment. Sensors tuned to our coasts and mountains, engines calibrated to our heat and dust. Partnership in this mode is not transactional, it is relational. It builds trust through shared work and shared risk, not through the imposition of terms that bind us to dependency. To our neighbors, let me be clear, this is not an act of provocation. It is a choice of self-reliance. We remain committed to dialogue, confidence-building measures, and regional security cooperation. The aircraft we will operate are for deterrence and rescue, as much as for defense. They will help deliver aid after floods, carry medics to remote clinics, and map disaster zones for the relief teams. We invite joint exercises in search and rescue, in maritime patrols that protect shared waters, and in humanitarian response, When our skies are secure, trade flows more easily, investments are less risky, and regional stability becomes a collective asset. The choice we make strengthens the neighborhood if it is coupled with transparency and cooperation. We must also speak of ethics. We insisted that rules of engagement and legal frameworks be taught alongside flight maneuvers. We require that training include discrimination measures that reduce harm to civilians, respect for human rights, and clear lines of civilian oversight. A capable Air Force must be a disciplined instrument, accountable to the very people it protects. The rhetoric of strength without the practice of restraint is dangerous. We will train commanders to value the sanctity of life as highly as the efficacy of a strike. In doing so, we bind military capacity to moral purpose. This procurement is also an investment in our youth. We will use it to create scholarships for aviation and engineering, to open technical schools that certify avionics specialists, and to fund apprenticeship networks that train welders, composite technicians, and engine specialists. We will create simulator centers where young pilots can train in scenarios that reflect our environment, sandstorms, long-range patrols, and tropical humidity. We will create research fellowships that encourage our brightest minds to innovate sensors, fuel management systems, and maintenance protocols adapted to local realities. By turning procurement into an educational engine, we turn defense spending into human capital development. Women will be part of this effort at every level. The sky has no gender. The runway knows no bias. We will open pilot schools to women, fund scholarships for female engineers, and encourage women to assume leadership roles in logistics and maintenance. This is not tokenism, it is pragmatism. A broader talent pool makes us stronger, and the full mobilization of national capacity requires the participation of all citizens. Let us now discuss industrial policy. We insisted on offsets and local content clauses that were meaningful, not cosmetic promises, but enforceable commitments. Local firms will have the first right of refusal on certain components, maintenance facilities will be established here with shared ownership, and joint ventures will be created to manufacture non-sensitive parts. These initiatives create jobs and allow our small and medium enterprises to move from informal micro-businesses to formal, scalable suppliers. Over time, as capacity deepens, we will seek to export maintenance services to neighboring countries, turning our hub into a regional center of excellence. Corruption and opacity are risks with any large procurement. We anticipated that and designed transparency mechanisms into the contract. Public procurement procedures were open, audits scheduled and reported publicly, and parliamentary oversight established from the start. We will make parts delivery schedules, maintenance logs, and readiness metrics public to the degree national security permits. Secrecy protects tactics, but secrecy cannot protect corruption. Sunlight is an essential disinfectant. Citizens will be able to judge the program's value not only by parachute photos but by metrics, sorties flown, mission-capable rates, training hours logged, and local jobs created. Technical sustainability was another clause we insisted upon. We chose systems that use widely available components, whose supply chains can be diversified, and whose software architectures are amenable to local modification. The aim is to avoid single-source choke points that can ground fleets in times of geopolitical friction. Diversity of suppliers, local manufacturing, and stocked spare inventories create resilience. Maintenance must be predictable, not an exercise in begging for favors. We required warranties, guaranteed spare parts pipelines, and on-site training for spares management and logistics planning. Financing this program was handled with prudence. Rather than accepting high-interest loans with punishing clauses, we structured payments, staggered deliveries, and tied disbursements to clear milestones. We involved multilateral financial institutions and negotiated concessional terms where available. We balanced capital expenditures with operational budgets so that we did not cannibalize social spending. The point is simple: defense must not impoverish the public services that defense is supposed to protect. A healthy society cannot be defended on the back of a sick public. Communication mattered. We engaged citizens throughout the process. Town halls, public briefings, and technical demonstrations demystified the choice. Instead of a top-down announcement, we opted for transparency. Demonstrations at air shows, open days at maintenance facilities, and recruitment drives that visited towns and villages. Public legitimacy is the greatest strategic asset. When people understand why choices were made, they support them with greater enthusiasm and vigilance. Operational doctrine was adapted to our geography. We prioritized multi-role capability over sheer speed. Interdiction, maritime patrol, close air support, and surveillance, platforms that address the threats we face and the missions we must perform. Range, payload, maintainability, and sensor flexibility took precedence over headline-making top speeds. Our strategic planners designed squadrons tailored to patrol our coastlines, monitor our borders, and support internal disaster relief operations. Flexibility beats flashiness when the task is to secure lives and livelihoods. We also built regional partnerships around maintenance and training. Neighboring nations are invited to training programs, mutual logistics support agreements, and pooled spare parts facilities. Collaboration reduces per-unit costs and creates shared standards. We invited workshops where technicians from different countries co-train and certify to common protocols. This regional approach spreads costs, increases interoperability, and reduces the temptation for embargoes to isolate any single partner. This procurement is an assertion of adult statecraft. It is a decision made by technicians, parliamentarians, accountants, and citizens in whose hands the future will rest. It was not a hair-trigger response to headlines, but the product of months of study, simulations, and budgetary discipline. It included realistic risk assessments, contingency planning, and a commitment to continuous evaluation. The goal is not to boast about capability, but to create capability that endures. We must also confront the narrative that this choice is about rivalry. It is not. It is about agency, about refusing to let geopolitics replace judgment. We welcome cooperation with all nations who respect our right to choose. We welcome visits, joint exercises, and shared research initiatives. But we will not accept conditions that compromise our ability to act in the public interest. Our policies will be guided by the welfare of our people and the long-term health of our institutions. Let me address those who fear escalation. The world is not an arena for theatrical gestures. It is a theater for careful management. We will pursue confidence-building measures, hotlines with neighbors, prior notification protocols for exercises, and joint search and rescue agreements. These measures reduce risk and build trust. The goal of defense is to prevent conflict, not to advertise capacity for aggression. We will make deterrence a tool for peace. Finally, let us think of the children. When they see hangars staffed by engineers from their own towns and pilots who trained on simulators at their own academies, their imaginations shift, ambition stops being an imported story and becomes something within reach. That is the long arc of this decision, the creation of possibility. When a nation can train its pilots, certify its technicians, and maintain its fleet, it is not merely defending its borders, it is building careers, industries, and a future generation that knows how to create rather than beg for solutions. So let this choice be more than a headline. Let it be the beginning of a multi-decade project of education systems aligned to industry needs, of exportable maintenance services, of transparent governance, and of a defense posture rooted in restraint and responsibility. We have not chosen bravado but capability. We have not chosen spectacle but sustainability. We chose partnership that teaches. We chose procurement that invests. We chose defense that protects development. May the runways we build not only carry metal into the sky, but also carry our confidence into a future where we make, maintain, and defend what belongs to us. May the engines that roar over our fields be heard as a promise that we will stand by our people, build our capacities, and govern with accountability. And may the clouds that pass over our nation carry not the shadow of fear, but the contrail of a people who decided, together, to own their destiny and to craft the tools that protect it. My friends, choosing what protects our skies is a sovereign act and a practical one. It is the intersection of principle and prudence. To make a sovereign choice means to decide from our own table, guided by our people's needs and our nation's long-term interest, not by the applause of distant capitals. To make a practical choice means to select tools we can sustain, repair, and improve with our own hands. So capability is not an annual lottery, but a steady platform for security and development. Sovereignty demands that we ask the right questions before signing any contract. Does this platform preserve our decision-making? Will it allow our technicians to learn and our factories to grow? Will it leave room in the budget to teach our children and heal our sick? If the answer is uncertain, then prestige alone cannot justify the cost. A sovereign decision protects not only borders but budgets, schools, and clinics, because defense that undermines basic services is hollow bravery. Practicality is the discipline of realism. We selected a system whose supply chains we can diversify, whose spare parts are reachable, and whose maintenance culture can be domestically cultivated. We prioritized life cycle costs over flashy specs on paper because the best deterrent is one that flies reliably, day after day. Readiness is not showroom polish, it is the routine of timely parts, practice crews, and local knowledge. When a fleet is supported by local capacity, decisions about deployment are made here, not negotiated in foreign ministries. This dual commitment, sovereign and practical, shapes our procurement terms. We insisted on knowledge transfer, on local assembly opportunities, and on enforceable local content. These are not niceties, they are mechanisms that turn a purchase into an industry. Apprenticeships and certified training programs mean that every flight hour also builds human capital. Engines return to health in our hangars, avionics are revised by our engineers, and the skills we cultivate become exportable services for the region. Choosing sovereignty with practicality also reshapes diplomacy. It signals that partnership must be reciprocal, assistance that builds capacity is welcome, conditionality that erodes autonomy is not. We extend hands to friends who respect our agency, and we diversify relationships to reduce vulnerability. That diversification is not isolation but insurance, a network of partners that together create resilience. Finally, this approach honors the social contract. Citizens fund defense with taxes and sacrifice. They deserve clarity and value. By combining sovereign intent with practical planning, we ensure that security enhances life rather than competes with it. We chose a path that defends our skies, strengthens our economy, and cultivates the skills of our people. In that choice, we planted the seeds of enduring independence. My fellow citizens, when we speak of defense, it is not enough to measure our strength in aircraft, ships, or armored vehicles. True power lies in the knowledge we command and the skills we pass from one generation to the next. Machines can be purchased, but mastery must be earned. That is why this agreement was not simply about acquiring an aircraft, it was about acquiring the ability to sustain, improve, and innovate with our own minds and hands. Knowledge transfer is the bridge between dependence and independence. We demanded and we secured terms that place our technicians, engineers, and pilots at the center of this project. From the first blueprint to the final test flight, our people are there, learning, asking, documenting, and mastering. Every procedure, every repair, every system check is a lesson that stays with us long after the ink on the contract has dried. Skills transfer ensures that this investment becomes more than a fleet, it becomes a school in motion. Young pilots will not only be trained to fly, but to understand the soul of the machine they command, its systems, its strengths, and its limits. Maintenance crews will not simply replace parts, they will diagnose, re-engineer, and adapt. These capabilities turn us from customers into creators, from consumers into contributors to the global aerospace community. We have built into this partnership programs for local assembly so that components arrive here and are brought together by our own workforce. We have secured internships, apprenticeships, and advanced engineering courses for our young minds in cooperation with world-class institutions. This ensures that our brightest students will one day be the experts who write the manuals, design the upgrades, and lead the innovations that others will come to learn from. And let us be clear, knowledge once gained cannot be taken away. It lives in our universities, in our workshops, in the muscle memory of skilled hands. It becomes part of our national DNA. It allows us to respond to crises without waiting for external saviors, to innovate without begging for permission, and to defend ourselves without strings attached. In securing this transfer of knowledge and skills, we have chosen the harder but wiser road, a road where each new generation inherits not dependency, but capability. That, my friends, is the kind of defense that outlives the machine and strengthens the nation. My friends, the decision to invest in this defense partnership is also an investment in our economy and our industrial future. It will ripple through factories, workshops, and classrooms to change how we make a living. When maintenance hangars are built, they do not require only wrenches and bolts, they require suppliers of parts, designers of fixtures, logistics firms, quality control labs, and accountants who can manage complex inventories. Each component of a defense ecosystem becomes a business opportunity for local entrepreneurs, creating a cluster of activity that multiplies jobs and income far beyond the initial contract. Local content requirements turn procurement into industrial policy. When we insist that components be sourced or assembled here, we seed supply chains that encourage small and medium enterprises to grow into reliable suppliers. A bolt produced for an aircraft is the same technical standard that raises the bar for automotive or construction industries. Training programs create technicians whose skill sets are transferable to civilian sectors: precision manufacturing, electronics repair, composite materials, and software integration. In short, defense spending becomes a catalyst for broader industrial upgrading. There is also the export potential. As our maintenance capacity and technical standards improve, we can offer services to neighboring countries, overhauls, certified inspections, and pilot training, turning a national expense into a regional revenue stream. Regional customers prefer proximate, reliable partners. By building capacity locally, we convert a domestic cost center into an export hub. This diversification reduces vulnerability and strengthens our balance of payments. The fiscal effects are durable. Jobs created in construction and operations increase household incomes, which in turn fuels local commerce and raises tax revenues. Those revenues can be reinvested in education, health, and infrastructure, creating virtuous cycles of development. Furthermore, predictable airport and aviation operations attract foreign direct investment to related sectors. Cold chain, logistics platforms, perishable goods processing, and investors often prefer jurisdictions with stable, capable infrastructure. Technology transfer is central to industrial impact. When foreign partners agree to share knowledge, patents are not the only asset. Local engineers learn to adapt designs to our climate and materials, reducing life cycle costs and making systems more resilient. Research collaborations with universities spur innovation, graduate programs deepen expertise, and incubators emerge around practical challenges solved in the hangar. Over time, this builds an ecosystem where invention and manufacture coexist. Finally, good governance amplifies impact. Transparent procurement, enforceable local content clauses, and continuous audits ensure that industrial gains are real and inclusive. When communities see tangible benefits, sustainable jobs, training slots, and supplier contracts, they are invested in the project's success. That social buy-in is part of economic security. Taken together, the industrial and economic effects of this partnership are more than short-term boosts. They are structural shifts that raise the capabilities of our workforce, diversify our economy, and create a durable platform for future growth. My friends, transparency and accountability are not optional luxuries. They are the scaffolding of public trust and the engines of sustainable progress. When nations make choices that shape futures about defense, infrastructure, or public services, citizens have a right to know how decisions are reached, how funds are spent, and who is responsible for outcomes. Transparency transforms suspicion into scrutiny. Accountability converts promises into practices. Transparency means clear processes and open information. Contracts must be published in accessible language, procurement steps should be traceable, and performance metrics must be reported regularly. When citizens can read the terms of agreements, understand timelines, and follow budgets, they move from passive observers to active participants. Openness reduces the space where corruption hides and invites constructive critique that improves projects rather than merely condemning them. Accountability is the mechanism that enforces responsibility. It requires independent oversight bodies, audits that are timely and public, and consequences when standards are not met. Elected representatives and civil servants alike must answer for decisions with evidence, deployment of resources, adherence to safety protocols, and delivery against milestones. Accountability is not about punishment alone, it is about learning and correcting course so that institutions grow stronger. Together, these principles foster a culture of integrity. When officials know their work will be visible and evaluated, decisions are less likely to be shaped by favoritism or short-term gain. When citizens see audits, oversight reports, and accessible data, trust rises and social cooperation deepens. Projects complete on time, funds stretch further, and public goods deliver the impact promised in speeches. Practically, this means building systems, public dashboards that show project status, procurement portals that detail bidders and award criteria, community councils that monitor local impacts, and whistleblower protections that keep witnesses safe. It means training auditors, empowering parliaments, and supporting investigative journalism. It also means publishing simple summaries that ordinary citizens can understand, not only technical annexes but clear explanations of benefits, risks, and safeguards. Finally, transparency and accountability honor the social contract. Citizens fund the state through taxes and bear the consequences of its choices. Therefore, they deserve clarity and recourse. Let us commit to sunlight as our policy, to publish, to explain, to audit, and to act when findings demand it. In that commitment, we build institutions that serve, laws that protect, and a democracy that lasts. May every decision be visible, every actor accountable, and every gain shared by all our communities. My friends, deterrence is not a drumbeat of menace. It is the quiet architecture that prevents conflict from sparking in the first place. Peaceful deterrence means building credible capacity so that aggression is unattractive while committing to norms, diplomacy, and cooperation that keep tensions low. When states invest in capability responsibly and transparently, they make miscalculation costly for would-be spoilers and reassure neighbors that strength is for stability, not spectacle. That is the very purpose of the choices we have made, to secure peace, not to provoke war. Regional cooperation multiplies the effect of deterrence. A single nation's posture can only do so much. When neighbors coordinate surveillance, share logistics, and rehearse joint responses to crises, collective security becomes greater than the sum of its parts. Pooling maintenance facilities, co-funding search and rescue exercises, and sharing training centers reduce costs and build trust. When an aircraft lands for routine maintenance in a nearby country, or when radar data is shared to prevent false alarms, the region grows safer together. Confidence-building measures must be explicit and routine. Hotlines between military commands, prior notification of exercises, joint humanitarian drills, and transparent reporting of deployments turn suspicion into predictability. We propose regular multilateral forums where technical experts, not just ministers, meet to harmonize procedures and standards. When citizens see their militaries cooperating on disaster relief, medical evacuation, and anti-piracy patrols, fear gives way to practical partnership. Our approach embeds civilian oversight and legal norms into defense cooperation. Exercises will include training on international humanitarian law and respect for human rights. Joint manuals and standard operating procedures will emphasize restraint and proportionality. That alignment ensures deterrence does not become an excuse for abuse. It anchors capability within a framework of accountability. Economic cooperation is a natural companion. Shared logistics hubs, common spare parts pools, and regional maintenance centers create economies of scale that lower the cost of readiness for everyone. Such arrangements also produce jobs and encourage industrial linkages that reinforce peaceful ties. A prosperous neighborhood has fewer incentives for conflict. Finally, diplomacy must move hand in hand with capability. We will expand diplomatic channels, engage regional organizations, and invite neutral observers to confidence-building initiatives. Transparency in procurements and operations will be extended to partners so that capability is not mistaken for threat. Let our drills show discipline. Let our aircraft carry aid more often than ordnance. Let our communication lines reduce panic and increase cooperation. Peaceful deterrence and regional cooperation are two sides of the same coin. One builds the means to prevent aggression, the other builds the relationships that make prevention reliable. Together they form a durable strategy for security that protects lives, fosters prosperity, and binds neighbors as partners rather than rivals.